Hello, I'm James Ezimoha and you're watching A News. Let's see your headlines. Artemis 2 astronauts safely back on Earth after their historic trip around the moon. Pakistan tightens security in Islamabad as it prepares to host high-stakes US-Iran talks. And Turkish drill ship arrives in Somalia for its first overseas deep-sea mission. NASA's Artemis 2 mission was successfully completed on Friday after 4 astronauts returned safely to Earth from its lunar flyby. It marks the furthest point any crew has reached in history.
Splashdown confirmed.
Copy splashdown, waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time.
After nearly 10 days in space, NASA's 4-member Artemis 2 crew returned to Earth on Friday, completing humanity's first voyage around the moon in more than half a century. The crew, US astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover and Christina Koch, along with Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean and were flown to a nearby US Navy amphibious transport vessel for further medical examination. Dozens of space enthusiasts gathered at the University of Toronto to watch the crew's return.
I think that it's great that 2 nations in this mission were able to work together despite everything that's going on. And because this is bigger than just any kind of political situation that is happening, this is for all humanity, and I think that's amazing.
At the San Diego Air and Space Museum, hundreds of people erupted into cheers and applause as the mission was successfully completed.
When I was 2 years old, I watched the lunar landing, and this is like an entire lifetime again to be able to see it happen again, not the landing, but actually the flight to the moon. It was a circle of my entire life, so it was very exciting.
US President Donald Trump also shared congratulatory remarks in a social media post, saying he looked forward to meeting the crew at the White House and pointing to a possible future mission to Mars. Meanwhile, NASA described the mission as a fantastic feat and said it highlighted the development of its Orion spacecraft.
I think this mission has been historic and has demonstrated new capabilities for Orion spacecraft, has taken our crew farther than any crews that have ever gone to the moon and back safely. 252,756 miles, and that is a fantastic feat. We got a lot more to do.
During the lunar flyby, the astronauts captured more than 7,000 images of the lunar surface and a solar eclipse, during which the moon blocked the sun from Orion's vantage point. The crew flew nearly 695,000 miles in total, surpassing the previous distance record set by Apollo 13 astronauts in 1970.
We now head to Islamabad, where Pakistan is hosting critical talks between the United States and Iran at a pivotal moment for regional stability. Security has intensified across the capital ahead of the closed-door talks, which is seen as a key test for turning this temporary truce into lasting peace.
Pakistan has tightened security in Islamabad as it prepares to host high-stakes US-Iran talks, the highest-level talks with Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, aimed at extending a fragile ceasefire and easing tensions across the Middle East. Thousands of police and military personnel have been stationed in Islamabad and neighboring Rawalpindi, with checkpoints set up at major intersections. Authorities have sealed off the area, blocked major roads, and established a 3-kilometer security perimeter around the venue. The talks are expected to be held behind closed doors, with Pakistan positioning itself as a mediator. Officials say discussions will focus on extending the current 2-week ceasefire and reducing regional tensions. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has described the meeting as a make-or-break moment for diplomacy.
A temporary ceasefire has been announced, but now the even more difficult stage is that of a permanent ceasefire, that is resolving the entangled issues through negotiations, and this stage is parallel to what is called make or break in English. Tomorrow, the leadership of both countries will be present in Islamabad, God willing, and the Pakistani leadership will make every effort with sincerity to make these talks successful.
Make or break.
United Nations spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the Secretary General is embracing the initiative and urging both sides to engage in good faith. He also called for using this diplomatic opportunity to reach a lasting agreement and prevent a return to hostilities.
I can tell you that the Secretary General welcomes the U.S.-Iran talks that are being mediated by Pakistan and scheduled to start in Islamabad over the weekend. He calls on the parties to seize this diplomatic opportunity to engage in good faith towards a lasting and comprehensive agreement with a view to de-escalation and the prevention of a return to hostilities.
Iran's delegation, led by Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, has arrived in Islamabad alongside senior political and economic officials. A US delegation, including Vice President J.D. Vance, President Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, has arrived in Islamabad. Major differences remain between the two sides. Iran is demanding sanctions relief, recognition of its role in the Strait of Hormuz, and a halt to Israeli operations in Lebanon. Washington, meanwhile, is pushing for Iran to curb its nuclear program, missile development, and regional alliances, warning military action remains an option if talks fail. The talks come during a 2-week ceasefire announced earlier this week, following more than a month of US-Israeli strikes on Iran. While the truce has paused direct attacks, tensions remain high.
Lebanon and Israel have agreed to hold an initial meeting next Tuesday in Washington as both sides move toward potential ceasefire negotiations. According to the Lebanese presidency, the talks will take place at the U.S. State Department and are expected to focus on formalizing a ceasefire and setting a timeline for further negotiations. The development follows direct contact between the Lebanese and Israeli ambassadors to the United States, with U.S. officials facilitating the process. Tensions have escalated sharply in recent days. Meantime, Israel maintains that the current U.S.-Iran ceasefire does not apply to the conflict in Lebanon, leaving the situation highly volatile. Oil markets are in focus as tensions rise around the fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran. With key talks approaching, uncertainty is already feeding into prices.
The global oil market has become the clearest signal of investor anxiety, swinging sharply on every development tied to the ceasefire and regional stability. Earlier optimism briefly pushed prices lower, with Brent crude falling more than 11% after the initial ceasefire announcement, slipping back below $100 a barrel after a recent surge. But that relief has been short-lived, with prices gradually recovering as doubts grow over whether the agreement can hold. At the center of concern remains the Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point handling around a fifth of global oil flows. Tensions are being compounded by reports of damage to key Saudi infrastructure, including pipeline and production facilities, further tightening supply and deepening concerns over global energy flows.
Of course, continuing to watch developments in the Strait of Hormuz with nervous anticipation, Donald Trump has accordingly criticized Iran for a very poor job. It is speculated that tariffs will be imposed on individual ships, or that passage will ultimately depend on the individual countries of the ships. As such, investors are continuing to watch the Strait of Hormuz, which is a key factor for the oil price.
Even as European energy stocks slipped 0.7%, oil prices continue to act as the market's pressure gauge, with traders weighing both diplomatic signals and physical supply risks. The result is a market caught between brief optimism and persistent uncertainty, with inflation fears and energy security once again driving sentiment. For now, oil remains the world's most sensitive barometer, reacting not just to diplomacy, but to disruption across one of the globe's most vital supply routes. And as weekend talks approach, markets are bracing for yet another swing.
Ukraine says it carried out overnight strikes on 2 Russian offshore drilling platforms in the Caspian Sea, targeting sites it claims supports Moscow's military logistics. Kyiv identified the platforms as ice-resistant facilities at the Valery Greifer and Yuri Korchagin fields, located about 1,000 kilometers from the front line. Russia said it shot down 9 Ukrainian drones over the Caspian Sea. The claims have not been independently verified, however. As the 32 hours Orthodox Easter ceasefire officially takes effect, is this pause a genuine humanitarian gesture or a tactical repositioning for a new offensive? Joining us to unpack this is Nikola Mikovic, a political analyst from Belgrade, Serbia. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me, James.
Now, who benefits most from this specific ceasefire?
I think Donald Trump benefits because he could portray himself as a peacemaker, because the United States is involved in peace talks in Islamabad, and now it managed to force both Moscow and Kiev to hold, well, if not talks, then at least to establish a ceasefire, although I don't think it will hold in reality, because last year we had exactly the same situation and that ceasefire did not hold. So this is an attempt to freeze the conflict, if I may say. We had similar attempts in the past, although nothing happened in the end. But now both sides seems to be wary of this war, so it is entirely possible that they will sooner or later reach a Minsk-style agreement and freeze the conflict that's been going on for 4 years, if not even more, because in my view, this war is a continuation of the Donbass war that erupted in 2014. What's interesting here is that the Kremlin initially stated that it is not willing to reach any ceasefire deals with Ukraine, that it wants a lasting peace. That's what Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov said. And then just a few hours later, Putin ordered a ceasefire. So what the Kremlin is saying and doing has absolutely nothing in common. So Iran is using exactly the same approach. As we know, Iranian leaders repeatedly stated that they are not interested in any ceasefire deals with the United States, and now we see them in Islamabad holding talks with the US. So what Russia and its strategic partner Iran are saying should not be taken too seriously. And this ceasefire will last for 32 hours. It is possible that they will try to extend it, although I think it's more likely that it will not hold, because that was the situation that we had in the past, not only last year, but also during the Donbass war as well. So there were multiple attempts to reach a permanent peace in Ukraine, but they never managed to do that because the very root cause of this conflict was not resolved. So I don't expect a lasting peace in Ukraine anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Now, Russia launched over 100 drones overnight, hitting Odessa just hours before the deadline. Is this a humanitarian pause or a move to exhaust air defenses?
I think it's just part of Russian regular military campaign against Ukraine, although it's rather questionable if the Kremlin is causing, with this action, if it's causing serious harm to the Ukrainian military. Because as we know, over the past few months, during the past winter, Russia launched a series of strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. And now Ukraine has the electricity. It managed to restore its energy systems. So that tells you that Russia's attacks are not very efficient. And it's been trying to destroy that port in Odessa for years, but the port still works. Normally, Ukraine exports its grains through the Odessa port, and there are some reports suggesting that Ukraine imports weapons through the Black Sea route, which tells you that Russian strikes are not efficient. That's the case when it comes to this particular attack on Odessa. and in many other cases as well. So Russia is relatively successful when it comes to destroying cities it is trying to capture. We see that cities in Donbass are leveled to the ground, and then Russia eventually manages to capture them, but it remains to be seen who will live in those cities after the war and who's going to rebuild them. So in other words, Russia is making strategic tactical gains that are strategically completely irrelevant at extremely high cost.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your time and insights with us.
Thank you.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Pyongyang on Friday. This is according to state-run television KRT. Wang is on a 2-day visit to Pyongyang from April 9th that aims to advance ties between the two countries after the COVID-19 pandemic froze exchanges. It also comes as North Korea's leader Kim shored up relations with Moscow. Hungary is heading into what could be a historic election as Prime Minister Viktor Orban faces his strongest challenge in 16 years from opposition leader Peter Magyar. Our correspondent Pablo Gutierrez reports.
Hungary is heading into the final hours of a political campaign that could be a defining election after 16 years of rule by Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Now, both sides are pushing to the very last minute, trying to mobilize voters before polls open on Sunday. Across the country, rallies have continued late into the campaign, with Orban warning that this vote is about security and national interest. He has framed the election as a choice about keeping Hungary out of a war, telling voters he's seeking a mandate to keep the country out of a wider European conflict. Orban has also drawn support from parts of Europe's far right and from the administration of Donald Trump, with allies praising his stance on migration, sovereignty, and national identity. He's widely seen as aligned with both Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, a position that has strained Hungary's ties with the European Union. His challenger, Peter Magyar, has taken a different approach. In the final stretch, Magyar has been campaigning across several cities in a single day, moving from rally to rally as he tries to turn strong polling into votes. He has focused on the economy, healthcare, and education, and has told supporters that Hungary must fix public services and unlock economic opportunities tied to better relations with Europe, arguing the country cannot move forward on its current path. According to many analysts, Magyar is seen as someone who could reset Hungary's relationship with the European Union and ease tensions with Brussels. In essence, Magyar is offering change and reform, while Orban is warning that change could bring instability and weaken Hungary's position. Now, the intensity of this final push reflects how close and high stakes this race has become. Most independent polls indicate Magyar holds a double-digit lead. This election is widely seen as a choice between continuity and change. Voters are focused on rising costs, public services, and Hungary's place in Europe. Turnout could reach close to 80%, according to some analysts, one of the highest in Hungary's history, which could prove decisive in such a close race. Now, after months of campaigning, it now comes down to these final hours, a country preparing to decide not just who leads, but what direction it takes next. Pablo Gutierrez for A News, Budapest, Hungary.
Now let's take a look at major stories from the region. Turkey has begun its first overseas deep-sea oil exploration with the Chara Bay vessel arriving off Mogadishu. The project, carried out in partnership with Somalia, will drill to a depth of 7,500 meters, placing it among the world's deepest offshore operations.
Turkey's deep-sea drilling vessel Chagri Bey arrived off the coast of Mogadishu to launch the country's first overseas deep-sea oil exploration project. The project follows seismic surveys conducted by the Oruj race vessel, which collected data over 234 days across 3 offshore blocks. The surveys helped determine the drilling location. Turkish Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar said the project marked a new era in Turkish petroleum exploration. The planned well will reach a depth of 7,500 meters.
The area where it will operate is offshore, about 370 kilometers from here, with a water depth of approximately 3,500 meters. From the seabed, we are planning a drilling depth of 4,000 meters, reaching a total depth of 7,500 meters. In this respect, it will be the second deepest offshore drilling operation in the world.
Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud underlined that the country's natural resources are a shared national asset and stressed the importance of ensuring their benefits reach all citizens.
Profits from the resources will benefit all Somalis, wherever they live in the country. There is no concept that a well drilled in one region belongs only to the people of that region. Natural resources are national wealth and will benefit all Somalis, equally or through different mechanisms.
Turkey is one of Somalia's main military and economic partners, with Ankara inaugurating its largest overseas base in Mogadishu in 2017. The drilling campaign is expected to last nearly 10 months, with weather conditions in the region likely to remain a key factor.
The 3-day bilateral roundtable is now into its second day here in Gebele, running from April 10th to 12th. With representatives of civil society from both Azerbaijan and Armenia meeting face-to-face. Nigar Shurunova has more from Gebele.
Discussions are continuing here in Gebele on the second day of the 3-day Peace Bridge Initiative Roundtable, bringing together civil society representatives from Azerbaijan and Armenia. Following yesterday's opening sessions, today's talks are focusing on confidence-building measures and strengthening direct engagement between the two societies. Here at the roundtable, Hikmet Hajiev, assistant to the President of Azerbaijan, has met with participants of the 4th Peace Bridge meeting, responding to questions from members of the Armenian delegation. Participants are also reviewing activities carried out within the initiative and the results achieved so far, with a continued emphasis on dialogue and trust building as the broader peace process moves forward. Meanwhile, developments beyond the meeting reflect ongoing engagement. Today, 15 rail cars carried 887 tons of diesel fuel are set to be sent from Azerbaijan to Armenia. In 2025, fuel exports between the two countries reached nearly $789,000. The event runs through April 12th, with its final day scheduled for tomorrow. That's all for now. Stay tuned to A News for the latest updates on the ground here. Nigar Shrinova, A News, Gebele, Azerbaijan.
Now let's talk to Parvana Valieva, member of the Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan, about the Peace Bridge talks taking place in Gebele. Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what practical outcomes do you expect from the Peace Bridge initiative?
Yes, thank you very much for your question. It is not the first meeting of civil society organization exchange between Azerbaijan and Armenia. It's, I think, third one, and the previous one was held in Armenia. They also exercised to cross the border from the delimited demarcated place. Right now, it is the same exercise that's being carried out by Armenian civil society. This is a proved way of confidence building measures. Civil society dialogue is a key conflict, post-conflict tool. It works when combined with official diplomacy, sustained with internationally and over time. In parallel to governmental and diplomatic communication, non-governmental organizations, their dialogue can significantly contribute to confidence-building measures. They can help reduce misinformation between societies, humanize the other side, as well as prepare the societies for peace agreement, peace provisions, overall the peace process. And also it can build grassroots support for reconciliation. For example, when we see scientific articles, also the international experience, it's not new. Nobel Peace Prize laureate and former Finnish President Martti Ahtisaari said that all conflict can be resolved through dialogue and inclusion. So this is a proved way, and we also think that this can significantly contribute to confidence-building measures between Azerbaijan and Armenia. We can propose further discussions, further exchange, for example, youth exchange, journalists exchange their joint projects, shared statements, and also some have inputs to sustainable peace between these two parties.
Mm-hmm. Now, Armenian representatives came to Azerbaijan through the land border, the same way Azerbaijani representatives went to Armenia in February. How significant is this in the broader peace process?
This is also very symbolic to crossing from the formally delimited and demarcated section between two countries. The participants completed all necessary border and passport control procedures as the same when Azerbaijani civil society organizations crossed to Armenia from Tavush place, from the west part of Azerbaijan. And I think that this is complementary to right now carrying out the peace agreement, the negotiations between officials, diplomatic communication, and related. Also, we carrying out some trade activities between two countries. When we talk about, for example, Benjamin Constant, one French liberal, a thinker of 19th century, said that the wars will never happen anymore because wars are for primitive people who did not discover trade. We have now trade. So if parties having trade, this is one of the way for confidence building measures, and what right now Azerbaijan and Armenia also exercising. We are selling oil products to Armenia. This is also one of the way of contributing to peace, final peace treaty.
Ms. Valieva, thank you very much for sharing your time and insights with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.